Have exactly 10 seconds to clear this landing zone before Deputy Morrison here arrests you for interference with emergency operations, reckless endangerment, and about 6 other charges I'm too tired to list." Craig spun around, pointing his stop sign at Tom like a sword. "You have no authority here. This is private HOA property and I demand to see your guest pass. No one enters Sandstone Valley Estates without proper authorization from the board." Deputy Morrison, a tall woman with zero patience for nonsense, stepped forward and placed her hand on her handcuffs. "Sir, I'm giving you one last warning. Move away from the landing zone now." Craig's face turned red behind his aviator sunglasses. "This is a conspiracy. You are all in on it. Reed Malloy has probably bribed you all with his helicopter money. Well, I will not be intimidated. The HOA charter is clear, and I answer to a higher authority than the state of Arizona." The helicopter was now hovering lower, clearly preparing for an emergency landing. Whether Craig moved or not, the downdraft from the rotors was kicking up dust and sending Craig's traffic cones tumbling across the desert. His comb over, which he usually kept carefully plastered down with what appeared to be an entire can of hairspray, was now whipping around his head like an angry ferret. Through the dust cloud, I saw the helicopter's side door slide open. A woman in a business suit leaned out, and even from 50 FT away, I could see the expression on her face. It was the kind of look that had probably ended political careers and made grown legislators cry. Governor Patricia Sandoval was not known for her patience, and Craig had just exhausted whatever small reserve she might have had. She held up a phone and appeared to be recording Craig. Then she pulled out her own bullhorn because apparently everyone has one these days, and her voice boomed across the landing zone. "Mr. Dutton, I am Governor Patricia Sandoval, and you are currently being filmed for what will probably become a viral video titled HOA Security Guard Tries to Arrest the Governor. You have 5 seconds to move, or I will personally ensure that you become the most famous fool in Arizona history." Craig actually took a step toward the helicopter, raising his stop sign higher. "I need to see your HOA guest pass. No exceptions, not even for government officials. The rules are the rules." Deputy Morrison had seen enough. She moved forward quickly, grabbed Craig's arm, and spun him around. "Mr. Dutton, you are under arrest for interference with emergency operations, obstruction of government administration, and reckless endangerment." She began reading him his rights as she placed him in handcuffs, having to speak loudly over his continued protestations about HOA sovereignty and airspace violations. As the deputy led Craig away, he was still shouting about filing complaints and demanding to speak to the HOA board immediately. "You will all be banned from Sandstone Valley Estates," he yelled. "Your names will go on the permanent no-entry list. This is not over." The helicopter finally landed, and Governor Sandoval stepped out, her hair barely ruffled despite the chaos. She walked directly over to me, extended her hand, and said with a slight smile, "Mr. Malloy, I assume. Thank you for your patience with this situation. I understand you have been dealing with this individual for some time." I shook her hand and replied, "Governor, you have no idea. Last month, he tried to find me for having too many clouds over my property. He claimed they were affecting the community's mandated sunshine requirements." She actually laughed at that. "Well, I think we can solve this problem permanently." She turned to Tom Richardson. "Tom, I want this property officially designated as a critical emergency infrastructure site, full state protection, immune from any HOA regulations or interference." And she looked at the black SUV where Craig was now sitting in the back seat. "Make sure Mr. Dutton understands that if he comes within 500 FT of this landing zone again, he will be charged with trespassing on state-protected land." Over the next hour, as the governor completed her fire assessment tour and the news crew filmed their segment, I learned about the full extent of the charges Craig would be facing. Interference with emergency operations alone carried a penalty of up to 5 years in prison and a $25,000 fine. The obstruction of government administration charge added another potential 3 years and $15,000. The reckless endangerment charge because he had forced a helicopter carrying multiple people to remain airborne with limited fuel could add an... The rescue helicopter circled above my ranch for the third time, its powerful rotors beating against the Arizona desert air as the sun began to set behind the red rock formations. Through my binoculars, I could see the pilot gesturing frantically while speaking into his radio. Down below, standing directly in the middle of my clearly marked landing zone with his arms crossed and a laminated stop sign held high, stood Craig Dutton, the head of security for our HOA. He had positioned orange traffic cones in a perfect circle around himself, as if they were some kind of magical barrier that could stop a $40 million aircraft from landing on my own property. The radio on my belt crackled to life with the pilot's exasperated voice. "Sir, we have an individual on the ground who claims to be with some kind of neighborhood security force. He says we are violating something called airspace tranquility regulations. I need this landing zone cleared immediately. We have the governor of Arizona on board for the wildfire assessment tour. Over." I watched as Craig pulled out his bullhorn, the one he had purchased with HOA funds despite 3 separate votes against it, and began shouting at the helicopter. "This is a violation of Sandstone Valley Estates HOA Ordinance 7. 3. 5. All aircraft must submit written approval forms 14 business days in advance. You are trespassing in regulated community airspace." The helicopter made another frustrated circle, and I could see someone in the back cabin leaning forward to speak with the pilot. A moment later, the radio crackled again. "Sir, the governor has just informed me that if this individual is not removed from the landing zone within 2 minutes, she will personally ensure he spends the night in county lockup." She also used some very colorful language that I will not repeat over official channels. Please advise over. My name is Reed Malloy, and at 51 years old, I thought I had seen everything during my 25-year career as a search and rescue paramedic. I had pulled people from flash floods, rappelled down cliff faces and thunderstorms, and once even delivered twins in the back of a helicopter during a blizzard. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared me for dealing with the Sandstone Valley Estates Homeowners Association and their self-appointed enforcer, Craig Dutton. I had moved to this gated community 3 years ago, purchasing a 10-acre ranch property that sat on the eastern edge of the development. The land came with an interesting history and an even more interesting legal easement. The previous owner, a retired medevac pilot named Bill Hawthorne, had negotiated a special provision when the development was first built. Due to the strategic location of the property and its proximity to state forest land, it was designated as an emergency landing site for rescue and firefighting aircraft. This designation was not just some handshake agreement. It was filed with the county, registered with the State Aviation Authority, and clearly marked on every FAA flight map of the region. Craig Dutton did not care about any of this. In his mind, the HOA rules superseded federal aviation regulations, state emergency protocols, and apparently common sense itself. Craig was 63 years old, stood about 5'6" in his custom orthopedic shoes, and wore mirrored aviator sunglasses at all times, even during our 700 p.m. board meetings in the community center. He had retired from a career as a mall security supervisor and had somehow convinced our previous HOA board to create the position of Chief of Community Security specifically for him. The current wildfire situation had started 5 days ago, when a lightning strike ignited dry brush in the state forest about 15 mi north of our development. The fire had grown to over 3,000 acres, and while it was not immediately threatening our neighborhood, the state had activated emergency protocols. My ranch, with its large flat clearing and access to the main highway, had been selected as a staging area for helicopter operations. I had spent 2 days clearing the landing zone, setting up a water station, and coordinating with the state fire marshal's office. Everything had been going smoothly until Craig decided to take action. It started with a strongly worded email at 11:30 p.m. 3 nights ago. "Mr. Malloy, it has come to my attention that you are planning to allow aircraft to land on your property without proper HOA authorization. Please be advised that this is a direct violation of our community standards regarding noise, dust,